Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing our review for the Ninja Foodi NeverDull 14-piece stainless steel knife set. That was definitely a mouthful. You have no idea how many times I had to record that to get that right. Is this going to be the knife set for you? Watch the video and find out. So you ready? Let's get into this. Just a quick note, our reviews are based upon the things that we feel are important. Those might be a little bit different for you, so what we recommend doing is after you watch our video, you watch a couple of other videos from different creators. That way you'll get a wider range of opinions that will help you make a much better buying decision for yourself, and that is the most important thing of all. Okay, here is the complete Ninja Foodi NeverDull 14-piece stainless steel knife set. They do make the set without these stainless steel handles also, but in my opinion, these are way better. You can see in the set we've got 6 service knives up here. We have 6 steak knives down here. You've got some kitchen shears, obviously the knife block, and we have our built-in sharpener right there as well. The sharpener has a stone sharpener in it, and the outside is made of plastic, and the block itself is black painted wood. Also on this, you got a couple of suction cups that'll help this thing stay put. Hear that? And if I turn this around, you can get a better look at that sharpener. This little lever here is the knife release, and this one here is the actual sharpener. One thing you always have to remember with these sets is that a 14-piece set like this means that includes everything. So 14 pieces includes 6 steak knives, 6 service knives, the shears, and the block. Kind of like when you buy a set of pans, the lids are counted separately in the numbers as well. That's all fine and dandy as long as you realize that you're not actually getting 14 knives in a 14-piece set. Let's go over the knives that you get. First, we have a 7-inch Santoku. The size is always restricted to the blade, so you're talking 7 inches from here to the tip of the blade. A Santoku knife is a Japanese styled knife, so really it's supposed to be sort of a hybrid between a cleaver and a chef knife. Santoku knives usually have these little cutouts on them right here, and that's supposed to be to help keep food from sticking to them when you're chopping stuff, but in my experience I don't remember that ever really helping at all, to be totally honest. But they do look cool, so there's that. All of the knives in this set are constructed the same way, so we're just going to go over that one time. You've got the Ninja logo etched into the side right here, which looks really good. On one side of the knife, you have the little Foodi logo, and it'll also tell you which knife it is and the length. These have an all stainless steel construction on them, and you can see that it only has a half bolster. That means you get less protection for your hand while you're holding the knife up front here, but it also means that it's easier for you to control too. I really do like this construction of knife much better, and that's mostly because when I cut, I have my hands up front here a little bit more, overlapping the back part of the blade, and if you had a full bolster, you wouldn't be able to do that. Also, you'll notice that these do not have wooden handles, so we don't have any rivets down here. The construction is going to be a lot stronger this way, and to me it's a lot prettier. But you also have to remember that since this is all metal, this will be a little bit more slippery than wood. They've etched all these bumps into the stainless steel just to give you a little bit more grip strength on it, and they do work really well. But if you get this knife really wet or you got oily hands or something like that, it will be a little bit harder to hold this knife steady. I personally have never had any problems with knives styled this way, but you might be a little bit different, so that could be something you want to think about. All of these knives are crazy sharp out of the box. We haven't really had them long enough to dull them up or anything like that, but if they stay anywhere near this sharp in the long term, then you're going to have a really good time using these. The aesthetic design of these is probably amongst the prettiest knives that I've ever seen. With that, if you've watched my videos in the past, you probably know how I feel, because my favorite knives of all time are my global knives. And if you look at these, you can see a very distinct comparison between the two brands. In fact, I'd go out on the limb to say Ninja styled their knives directly off of the globals because of how they look. And if they did that, then they made a very wise decision in my opinion. In addition to being super sharp, these knives are really well balanced. For a knife, you want the handle to be about as heavy as the entire blade here. And sometimes that can be a little bit of an issue because obviously the handle is usually shorter than the blade. And the way you can tell they're balanced really well is you can hold the knife up really close to the bolster here, and you can see how much the knife tips back and forth. The reason you want this to be really well balanced is for 2 reasons. Number 1, you can move the knife a lot faster, more accurately if it's balanced well. And number 2, it's much safer that way too. You run less of a chance of actually cutting yourself or doing anything weird because it'll feel more like an extension of your hand. So as far as Ninja goes, actually compared to our globals, the balancing is pretty good. Handles are a little bit wider too than they are with my globals. If you look at this, you can see how much thinner the global handle is. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I personally like this thicker handle, but I got bigger hands too, so maybe that kind of goes into that a little bit. But I like the way these feel too, so just mentioning that because some people like a thinner handle, some people like a thicker handle. All depends on your personal preference there. In addition to the Santoku, we also have an 8-inch chef knife. And really, when you're talking about different knives, they're all shaped differently for different reasons. You can see that the chef knife has more of a curvature here than the Santoku did, because the Santoku is designed more for cleaving stuff and not so much rolling. A chef knife, you tend to have more of a rolling action when you're cutting, so you got more of a curved blade. Our next knife is an 8-inch bread knife, and if you don't have a bread knife in your repertoire, you really gotta have one. Just because if you're trying to cut bread, you really gotta have a serrated edge like this. Otherwise, no matter how sharp your knife is, it's not gonna catch the bread and it's just gonna kind of smush it down. Just one thing to keep in mind, that even though this set does come with a knife sharpener, you can't use a sharpener on a serrated edge like this. So for me, even though a lot of people use a bread knife to cut things like tomatoes, I would limit my use on this strictly to bread. That way it'll stay as sharp as long as possible. Next we have our 8-inch slicing knife. Again, you can see it's got a much different shape than the other knives. Down here we got a 3.5-inch paring knife, a 6-inch utility knife. These 6 knives right here are our steak knives. These things will cut through cooked steak like butter regardless of how much fat there is on it. Definitely something like these are a must-have. And our only other knife per se is our kitchen shears. If you open these up all the way, you can pull it apart for cleaning. It goes back together like that, and you just slide it closed. And if you've never used a good pair of kitchen shears like these, then you got no idea how useful something like this can be. A lot of sets don't include these. To test these knives, we tried a bunch of stuff starting with slicing tomatoes. We actually even used older tomatoes that had kind of tougher skins on them to make it as hard as possible. And whenever possible, we did these tests with several different knives just to show the versatility. Tomatoes can be a big problem if your knives aren't crazy sharp, and as you can see right here, this thing is slicing right through them, almost like they're not even there. Excellent job with those, I was super impressed. Next we tried chopping and slicing some green onions, so we used a variety of the knives there as well, as you can see. With each one we tried to cut in a slightly different style just to kind of show you a little bit of variety there. That worked really great. Also, we did a little bit of testing, cutting some thin slices of red onions. Don't hold onions away, I'm holding them here in the demo because that was kind of stupid and dangerous, but for the most part you get it. It's slicing through them pretty easy, as you can see. I even diced one a little bit just to kind of see what it would do with the paring knife. Next we tried slicing a big fatty piece of steak, and we did that with several of the different knives as well. And if you're looking closely at that, you can see how easily these knives cut through that meat. For a lot of them, you can just slice right through it like it's not there. And I'll tell you what, this was not the leanest piece of meat in the world either. There was plenty of bristle on there and plenty of fat. And you can see, even as I'm trying to cut these down into smaller pieces, these knives are going through those pretty darn easy. Again, remember, these are brand new knives and they're gonna be as sharp as they can possibly be out of the factory. But also keep in mind that I've got knives in the past that had to be sharpened out of the box. So you gotta take that as it will, but first impressions are a pretty big deal. Tried slicing up some of these green peppers too. These have also been sitting for a little while, so the skins aren't as crisp as they normally are, and they will tend to kind of smush down a little. But you can see it didn't really seem to matter too much with these knives. They sort of just went right on through it. Didn't really seem to be a problem at all, and again, we went with multiple knives and they all seemed to handle the job perfectly fine, whether I was slicing, chopping, or dicing. Also, I was able to make some pretty thin cuts on those without any kind of real effort. The knife balancing that we were talking about earlier goes a long way towards making something like that possible. By the way, if this is your first time here and you want to learn some cool new recipes, get some great cooking tips and tricks and all sorts of other kitchen related things, then start now by subscribing to the channel and clicking the notification bell so you never miss a thing. As far as the integrated knife sharpener goes, there's a couple of things here. When I originally got this and opened the box, I did mention that I thought it was going to be kind of hard to take a knife like this and sharpen it in the same sharpener as, for instance, a knife like this. because they're so much different in size, and I thought because these knives will go so much further down into the sharpener that these would probably disappear down there and be impossible to get out. Well, I didn't notice that the sharpener actually has two different openings here. The larger opening is for the ones with the larger handles. The smaller opening is for the ones with the smaller handles. And I'll tell you what, it really does work well. So I'm going to show you sharpening on both sizes. First, we'll take my Santoku, since that's what I've been using the most. You slide that right in here, push it down till it stops, and you can see that it's stopped with about a half a handle left here. Once that's in there and you can't push it down in there any further, then we're going to slide the sharpener up and down 10 times. Once you've done that, you're pretty much done with the sharpening and you can release the knife. As you can see, if I pull on this, it's not going to come out. You have to push this lever down up top here, and that releases the knife, and then you can pull it out like this. Keep in mind that using a knife sharpener is not the same thing as using a honing steel. When you sharpen a knife, you are removing tiny bits of metal from the knife. So over time, the sharpener is eventually going to finish your knife off. How long that takes just kind of depends. So I would only recommend using the sharpener when you need to use the sharpener. Don't just do it willy-nilly. Also, after you take your knives out of the sharpener, I would clean these, rinse them off, do something to make sure you don't have any metal shavings sitting around on the blade, because you don't want that to end up in your food either. Now for a knife with the smaller blade. In fact, I'll show you two. See, we got two different knives, two different lengths, both with these small handles. So if we put this utility knife in here, that will slide in, once again, all the way halfway up. Again, you can't pull this out without pulling this lever, and you can sharpen this the same way. I'm not going to sharpen it again because I already showed you how to do that. I'll just go ahead and release this knife. Now when we put in our steak knife, that will slide in, again, the same amount as the other one did, even though the blade lengths are different. Seems to work really great. One thing to know about the sharpener, if you get one of these, is that you need this to go all the way down and all the way up. I'm going to show you what happens if you don't do that. When I bring this up, you can kind of hear it click, and then when you go down, you can hear it click again at the very, very bottom. That changes the direction on this, and it's important because I'm going to show you what happens if you don't do that. If I'm, I don't know, sitting here trying to guess where the end of the blade is, and I just kind of go down about halfway, and you can hear it right there clicking, but I'm not down all the way. If I pull this back up, it's going to get stuck right here. It's not going to allow me to bring that up anymore. You've got to go all the way down and then bring it up. If you didn't know that, it's going to make you feel like the sharpener is a piece of crap. So just keep in mind that that is, in fact, a feature. So again, you can pull this lever. Comes right out. I'll tell you what you get for the money is pretty darn impressive. And they do have a 10-year warranty on these and guarantee them to stay sharp under normal use. So you know what that means? Not entirely sure. So what I would think it would mean, as long as you're not abusing these knives, like cutting things you're not supposed to cut, trying to go through metal, cutting stuff on your granite countertop and not on a cutting board, dropping them repeatedly, you know, that kind of stuff, then they'll replace your blades if they dull out and won't sharpen over the course of 10 years. In any case, hopefully you never have to find out. These Ninja Foodi NeverDull knives have a lot going for them. They look great, they're well balanced, they're sharp as heck. The set gives you a nice selection of knives, and you even get a good looking knife block with a cool sharpener built right in. For the purposes of the review, we weren't able to really test the durability, obviously, since we haven't had them long enough to do so. But if our initial testing is any indication of quality down the road, we're thinking these are going to be a really great addition to our kitchen for years to come. For me personally, Ninja styling the knives after the global knives was a stroke of genius because they look fantastic. If you'd like a little bit more information about the Ninja Foodi NeverDull knives that we reviewed in this video, we do have an Amazon affiliate link to them down in the description of the video. If you buy anything through those links, we do make a small commission, but it doesn't change the price that you pay 1 cent. If you like this video, you might like this video right here where we reviewed the global knives that these Ninjas are actually modeled off of. That might be an interesting watch for you. So that's it for now. Hope to see you back again here really soon, and until that time, I'm Joe, and I hope you have a phenomenal day. Take it easy.